Stop storing these 10 foods in the fridge. Cold temperatures can ruin their taste, texture, and even reduce their health benefits. You might think the fridge is the best place to keep everything fresh, but that's not always the case. While refrigeration works for many foods, there are certain items that actually do worse in cold conditions. Some lose flavour and texture, while others may spoil faster or form compounds that aren't good for your health. In this video, we'll go through 10 common foods you should never refrigerate. We'll explain why storing them the wrong way can affect their freshness, taste, and nutritional value. Before we jump into the list, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Share your location in the comments and let me know if you've experienced anything like this. All right, let's get into it. Number 1, potatoes. Keeping potatoes in the fridge is a common mistake. Cold temperatures cause their starches to turn into sugars more quickly. This gives them a strange, overly sweet taste and a gritty texture when cooked. If you bake or fry them at high heat, those extra sugars can react to form acrylamide, which is a chemical that may be linked to certain health risks when consumed in large amounts. On top of that, the fridge is too damp for potatoes. The moisture makes them spoil faster, turn mushy, and smell bad. To keep potatoes fresh, store them in a cool, dark place with good air circulation, like a pantry or a paper bag. Don't use plastic bags since they trap moisture. Mesh bags, baskets, or burlap sacks work better. Also, keep them away from sunlight, which can make them turn green and produce solanine, a natural toxin that can upset your stomach. Don't store them next to onions either. Onions release gases that speed up spoilage. With proper storage, you can keep your potatoes firm, tasty, and safe to eat for much longer. Number 2, tomatoes. Tomatoes are sensitive to cold. Storing them in the fridge dulls their flavor and makes their texture grainy. That's because refrigeration slows down the natural enzyme activity that gives tomatoes their taste. It also stops them from ripening properly, so they never reach their full flavor potential. There's also a nutritional reason to keep tomatoes out of the fridge. Cold storage lowers the amount of lycopene, which is a natural compound linked to heart health and cancer prevention. To get the most taste and nutrition out of your tomatoes, store them at room temperature, away from direct sunlight. Place them stem side down to help slow down moisture loss and spoilage. If they're still ripening, just leave them on the counter. Once they're fully ripe, you can refrigerate them if needed, but let them return to room temperature before eating to bring back some of the flavor. If you're trying to keep ripe tomatoes fresh a little longer without using the fridge, a cool, dark pantry or a paper bag can help. Also, don't store them next to fruits like apples or bananas. Those give off ethylene gas, which speeds up ripening and can make your tomatoes spoil faster. By following these simple steps, your tomatoes will stay flavorful and packed with nutrients. Number 3, onions. Onions are one of the most commonly used ingredients in cooking, but how you store them can make a big difference in their freshness and flavor. Putting whole onions in the refrigerator is not a good idea. The cold, damp conditions inside a fridge cause onions to absorb excess moisture, which breaks down their outer layers. This makes them soft, slimy, and more likely to grow mold. On top of that, the starches inside the onion start to convert into sugars, which gives them an off taste that's too sweet and not ideal for cooking. Another issue with refrigerating onions is that they have a strong odor, and they tend to spread that smell to other foods in your fridge. This can make things like butter or fruit pick up an unwanted onion scent. Onions also absorb moisture from the surrounding air, especially in fridges with high humidity. This speeds up sprouting and spoilage. The best way to store onions is in a cool, dry, and well-ventilated area, like a pantry, cupboard, or basement. Use containers that allow air to flow, such as mesh bags, baskets, or even paper bags. Avoid plastic bags or sealed containers as they trap moisture and speed up rotting. It's also important to keep onions away from potatoes. Potatoes release gases and moisture that can cause onions to spoil faster. If you've already cut an onion, then it's fine to store it in the fridge, but you need to seal it properly. Use an airtight container or wrap it tightly to prevent the smell from spreading. But for whole onions, room temperature is the way to go if you want them to stay firm and flavorful for longer. Number 4, garlic. Garlic is another staple ingredient that doesn't belong in the fridge when it's still in bulb form. Cold and humid environments encourage garlic to sprout. Those green shoots that grow from the cloves taste bitter and change the overall flavor. Once sprouting starts, the garlic begins to lose its strength and freshness. Refrigeration also encourages mold growth, especially if the outer skins of the bulb become damp. Garlic naturally contains compounds that give it its sharp, savory flavor. Cold temperatures can interfere with those compounds, making the flavor less intense. Like onions, garlic can also absorb odors from nearby foods in the fridge, which can change the way it tastes once you cook with it. The best way to store whole garlic bulbs is at room temperature in a dry and airy spot. A mesh bag, wire basket, or a small bowl with holes works best to keep it dry and well ventilated. Never store garlic in sealed plastic bags or containers unless it's been chopped or peeled, as that traps moisture and leads to mold. If you've peeled or chopped your garlic, you can refrigerate it in an airtight container, but it's best to use it within a few days. Another option is to freeze it for long-term use or preserve it in oil, but be careful. Garlic in oil must be refrigerated and used quickly to avoid the risk of bacterial growth. By storing garlic properly, you'll keep its flavor strong and make it last longer without going bad. Number 5, avocados. Avocados are a bit tricky when it comes to storage. If your avocado is still hard and unripe, don't put it in the fridge. Cold temperatures stop the ripening process by slowing down the activity of natural enzymes and ethylene gas, which is what softens the fruit and brings out its flavor. Refrigerating them too early can result in avocados that stay hard for a long time and end up with a flat, unappealing taste. Let unripe avocados ripen at room temperature. To speed things up, place them in a brown paper bag with a banana or apple. These fruits release ethylene gas, which helps the avocado ripen more quickly. Once the avocado is ripe, the fridge can help slow down further ripening for a few days. But don't wait too long. Ripe avocados stored in the fridge can develop a watery texture and a slightly off taste due to the breakdown of their healthy fats. If you've already cut open your avocado, exposure to air will cause the surface to turn brown. That browning doesn't mean it's spoiled, but it doesn't look or taste great. To reduce browning, store the cut avocado in an airtight container and sprinkle some lemon or lime juice on the exposed flesh. The acid helps slow oxidation and keeps it looking fresher. Number 6, bananas. Bananas should always be stored at room temperature because they are sensitive to cold environments. Refrigerating bananas disrupts their natural ripening process. When exposed to low temperatures, the skin darkens rapidly, often turning black or deep brown. This can make the banana look overripe on the outside, even though the inside is still firm and underripened. What's actually happening is something called chilling injury. The cold temperature stops the enzymes responsible for converting starch into sugar, which is what gives ripe bananas their sweet taste. As a result, refrigerated bananas can end up tasting bland or starchy. The cell walls in bananas are also damaged by cold, and once returned to room temperature, the fruit becomes mushy instead of soft and creamy. In addition, storing bananas in the fridge can create condensation on the peel, increasing the risk of mold growth. This not only affects appearance, but also impacts freshness and shelf life. For the best results, store bananas on a counter or in a fruit bowl at room temperature. Hanging them on a banana hook is even better because it allows air to circulate around them and prevents bruising. To slow down ripening, separate each banana from the bunch. This limits the spread of ethylene gas, which bananas naturally release as they ripen. If you have bananas that are too ripe to eat, don't refrigerate them. Instead, peel and freeze them. Frozen bananas are perfect for smoothies, baking, or adding to oatmeal. You can also mash ripe bananas and freeze them in portions to use later in banana bread, muffins, or pancakes. This way, you reduce waste and still get to enjoy their flavor in other forms. Number 7, uncut melons. Uncut melons, such as watermelon, cantaloupe, and honeydew, should be stored at room temperature instead of in the refrigerator. When left whole, melons continue to develop their natural sugars after harvest. Refrigeration stops this sugar development, which means the fruit doesn't reach its full flavor potential. As a result, chilled melons can taste dull or flat compared to those kept at room temperature. Cold storage also affects the texture of whole melons. The cell walls inside the fruit can break down when exposed to low temperatures, which often results in a grainy or watery consistency. Watermelons are especially prone to this, becoming soggy if stored in the fridge too long before being cut. Scientific studies have shown that storing melons at room temperature helps them maintain higher levels of antioxidants like beta-carotene and lycopene. These nutrients are important for overall health, and the way you store the fruit can make a noticeable difference in how much of them you get. However, once a melon is cut, the situation changes. The exposed flesh becomes vulnerable to bacteria and oxidation, which is why cut melons should always be refrigerated. Wrap the cut pieces tightly in plastic wrap or place them in an airtight container. This prevents them from drying out and absorbing odors from other foods in the fridge. For the best taste and safety, eat cut melons within 3 to 4 days. Number 8, bread. Many people store bread in the refrigerator thinking it will keep it fresh longer, but this actually speeds up the stalling process. Bread contains starch, and when it's exposed to cold temperatures, the starch molecules recrystallize faster. This process is known as retrogradation and leads to the bread becoming dry and tough, even if it's kept in a plastic bag. While refrigeration might slow down mold growth in some cases, the change in texture makes the trade-off not worth it. The fridge also creates a moisture imbalance. The crust often becomes soggy due to condensation, while the inside turns dry and crumbly. If moisture gets trapped inside the packaging, it can also encourage mold growth, making the bread go bad faster than expected. The best place to store bread is in a bread box or a cool, dry pantry where it's protected from direct sunlight and humidity. This allows the bread to stay soft without the negative effects of refrigeration. If you plan to eat the bread within a few days, room temperature storage is ideal. For longer storage, freezing is a much better option. Before freezing, slice the bread so you can remove only what you need without having to defrost the entire loaf. Place the slices in a freezer-safe bag and remove as much air as possible to prevent freezer burn. When you're ready to eat it, you can toast it directly from frozen or let it thaw at room temperature. To revive frozen bread, pop it in the oven or toaster for a few minutes. This helps bring back some of the original softness and flavor. By following these steps, you can extend the life of your bread without sacrificing taste or texture. Number 9, honey. Honey is one of the rare foods that can last indefinitely without spoiling. That's not an exaggeration. Archaeologists have even discovered pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are still perfectly edible. What makes honey so stable is its natural composition. It contains very little water and is highly acidic. This combination prevents bacteria, mold, and yeast from growing, which is why honey doesn't go bad like most other foods. However, the way you store honey can affect its texture, flavor, and how easy it is to use. A common mistake people make is keeping honey in the fridge. While this might seem like a good idea to make it last longer, refrigeration actually causes honey to crystallize much faster. Crystallization happens when the natural sugars in honey, mainly glucose, start to separate from the water and form tiny crystals. The result is a thick, grainy texture that some people find off-putting. The colder the temperature, the faster this process occurs. In a fridge, honey can become so solid that it's nearly impossible to pour or scoop. While it's still completely safe to eat, it becomes less convenient and may lose some of its appeal. Plus, refrigeration can dull the delicate floral notes and sweet aromas that make raw or lightly processed honey taste so good. The flavor may become flat over time. To prevent crystallization and preserve honey's natural flavor and texture, you should store it in a sealed container at room temperature. Keep it away from direct sunlight, heat sources like stovetops, or areas with high humidity. A kitchen pantry or cupboard works well. If your honey does crystallize, don't throw it out. Place the jar in warm, not boiling water and stir gently until the crystals dissolve. You can also microwave it in short bursts, but this method requires more caution to avoid overheating. One important tip: always use clean utensils when scooping honey. Introducing moisture or food particles into the jar can lead to fermentation or spoilage over time. Also, avoid storing honey in metal containers unless they're stainless steel, as the acid in honey can react with certain metals and alter its taste or quality. So the bottom line is this: honey lasts longest and tastes best when stored at room temperature. Refrigerating it may seem helpful, but it actually makes it harder to use and can reduce the very qualities that make honey so special in the first place. Number 10, olive oil. Olive oil is a go-to ingredient in many households, thanks to its health benefits and rich, smooth flavor. It's often used for sautéing, roasting, salad dressings, and even baking. But how you store it can make a big difference in both its taste and shelf life. One common storage mistake is putting olive oil in the fridge. While it might seem like a safe place to protect it from heat and light, refrigeration can negatively affect the oil's consistency and quality. When olive oil is exposed to cold temperatures, it begins to solidify. This is especially true for extra virgin olive oil, which is less processed and contains more natural waxes and fatty acids. In the fridge, these components start to form cloudy particles and eventually turn the oil into a thick, sludgy consistency that looks and feels more like butter than oil. Though it's not spoiled, this solidified oil is inconvenient to use. You'll need to let it sit at room temperature for a while before it becomes pourable again. But that's not the only issue. Taking olive oil in and out of the fridge causes condensation inside the bottle. Even a small amount of moisture can trigger spoilage or bacterial growth, which compromises both the safety and taste of the oil. Over time, the presence of water can also lead to mold growth or rancid flavors, especially in oils that are not tightly sealed. Olive oil also reacts poorly to oxygen and light, which speed up oxidation and cause the oil to degrade. Rancid olive oil has a bitter, sour, or musty smell and loses the fruity, peppery taste that fresh, extra virgin olive oil is known for. To prevent this, the best way to store olive oil is in a cool, dark, and dry location, ideally a pantry or cabinet that's not near your stove or any windows. You should also use containers made from dark glass, stainless steel, or opaque plastic. These help block light and reduce the rate of oxidation. Make sure the cap is always screwed on tightly after each use to minimize air exposure. With proper storage, extra virgin olive oil can retain its flavor and quality for up to a year, though it's best used within 6 months for optimal freshness. So skip the fridge. A dark cupboard or pantry will keep your olive oil in great shape, smooth, aromatic, and ready to enhance your cooking at a moment's notice. And that wraps up our list of foods you should never keep in the fridge. A little storage know-how goes a long way when it comes to keeping your food fresh and flavorful. If you learned something new today, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more tips, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.